Hello, squirrels! We're going to finish up the book tonight. I got to finish the chapter I was on, whatever it is. You see it in the title. And then the last chapter's pretty short, so I'm going to finish it tonight. And guess what? I went to the library and got the good old-fashioned book. Another Tommy and Tuppence book. Woo-hoo. Okay, let's see. Last sentence I read was, "But to you who know the truth, I propose to read certain passages which will throw some light on the extraordinary mentality of this great man." He opened the book and turned the thin pages. "It is madness to keep this book, I know that. It's a documentary evidence against me." It's the little book that Mr. Brown had on him. "But I have never shrunk from taking risk, and I feel an urgent need for self-expression. The book will only be taken from my dead body." And y'all, the smell of almonds, one of you, was it Laura Lee, reminded me, and I should have known, didn't they mention that when Mrs. What's-Her-Face was killed? Vandermeyer? Cyanide. Yeah, Mr. Brown, that's what he did. "From an early age, I realized that I had exceptional abilities. Only a fool underestimates his capabilities. My brain power was greatly above the average. I know that I was born to succeed. My appearance was the only thing against me. I was quiet and insignificant, utterly nondescript. When I was a boy, I heard a famous murder trial. I was deeply impressed by the power and eloquence of the counsel for the defense. For the first time, I entertained the idea of taking my talents to that particular market." Oh my gosh. What he could have done with that genius in a good way. Oh, mercy. But then we wouldn't have had this exciting book, right? She does bring these characters to life, doesn't she, Agatha Christie? Impressed. Particular market. "Then I studied the criminal in the dock. The man was a fool. He had been incredibly, unbelievably stupid. Even the eloquence of his counsel was hardly likely to save him. I felt an immeasurable contempt for him. Then it occurred to me that the criminal standard was a low one. It was the wastrels, the failures, the general riffraff of civilization who drifted into crime. Strange that men of brains had never realized its extraordinary opportunities. I played with the idea. What a magnificent field! What unlimited possibilities! It made my brain reel. I read standard works on crime and criminals. They all confirmed my opinion. Degeneracy, disease, never the deliberate embracing of a career by a far-seeing man. Then I considered, supposing my utmost ambitions were realized, that I was called to the bar and rose to the height of my profession, that I entered politics, say even that I became Prime Minister of England. What then? Was that power? Hampered at every turn by my colleagues, fettered by the democratic system of which I should be the mere figurehead? No, the power I dreamed of was absolute, an autocrat, a dictator, and such power could only be obtained by working outside the law. To play on the weaknesses of human nature, then on the weaknesses of nations, to get together and control a vast organization, and finally to overthrow the existing order and rule. The thought intoxicated me. I saw that I must lead two lives, A man like myself is bound to attract notice. I must have a successful career which would mask my true activities. Also, I must cultivate a personality. I modeled myself upon famous KCs. And one of you told me what that means, and I don't remember. I reproduced their mannerisms, their magnetism. If I had chosen to be an actor, I should have been the greatest actor living. No disguises, no grease paint, no false beards, personality. I put it on like a glove. When I shed it, I was myself, quiet, unobtrusive, a man like every other man. I called myself Mr. Brown. There are hundreds of men called Brown. There are hundreds of men looking just like me. I succeeded in my false career. I was bound to succeed. I shall succeed in the other. A man like me cannot fail. I've been reading a life of Napoleon. He and I have much in common. I make a practice of defending criminals. A man should look after his own people. Once or twice I have felt afraid. The first time was in Italy. There was a dinner given. Professor Dee, the great alienist, was present. The talk fell on insanity. He said, a great many men are mad and no one knows it. They do not know it themselves. I do not understand why he looked at me when he said that. His glance was strange. I did not like it. The war has disturbed me, and I thought it would further my I thought it would further my plans. The Germans are so efficient. Their spy system, too, was excellent. Yeah, I was kind of in my mind comparing him to Hitler. The streets are full of these boys in khaki, all empty-headed young fools, yet I do not know they won the war. It disturbs me. My plans are going well. A girl butted in. I do not think she really knew anything, but we must give up the Estonia. No risk now. All goes well. The loss of memory is vexing. It cannot be a fake. No girl could deceive me. And yet she did. The 29th. That is very soon. Mr. Carter paused. I will not read the details of the coup that was planned, but there are just two small entries that refer to the three of you. In the light of what happened, they're interesting. And then he goes back to the book. By inducing the girl to come to me of her own accord, I have succeeded in disarming her, but she has intuitive flashes that might be dangerous. She must be got out of the way. I can do nothing with the American. He suspects and dislikes me, but he cannot know. I fancy my armor is impregnable. Sometimes I fear I have underestimated the other boy. He is not clever, but it's hard to blind his eyes to facts. Who's talking about? Hersheimer and Tommy. And Tuppence. Mr. Carter shut the book. A great man, he said. Genius or insanity, who can say? There was silence. Then Mr. Carter rose to his feet. I will give you a toast. The joint venture, which has so aptly justified itself by success. It was drunk with acclamation. There's something more we want to hear, continued Mr. Carter. He looked at the American ambassador. I speak for you also, I know. We'll ask Miss Jane Finn to tell us the story that only Miss Tuppence has heard so far. But before we do so, we'll drink her health. The health of one of the bravest of all America's daughters, to whom is due the thanks and gratitude of two great countries. And that's it for that chapter. Now the last chapter. Chapter 28 is called And After. "That was a mighty good toast, Jane," said Mr. Hersheimer as he and his cousin were being driven back in the Rolls Royce to the Ritz. "The one to the joint venture?" "No, the one to you. There isn't another girl in the world who could have carried it through as you did. You were just wonderful." Jane shook her head. "I don't feel wonderful at heart. I'm just tired and lonesome and longing for my own country." "That brings me to something I wanted to say. I heard the ambassador telling you his wife hoped you would come to them at the embassy right away. That's good enough, but I've got another plan. Jane, I want you to marry me. Don't get scared and say no at once. You can't love me right away, of course. That's impossible. But I've loved you from the very moment I set eyes on your photo. And now I've seen you, I'm simply crazy about you. If you'll only marry me, I won't worry you any. You shall take your own time. Maybe you'll never come to love me, and if that's the case, I'll manage to set you free. But I want the right to look after you and take care of you." "That's what I want," said the girl wistfully. "Someone who'll be good to me." "Oh, you don't know how lonesome I feel." "Sure thing I do. Then I guess that's all fixed up. I'll see the Archbishop about a special license tomorrow morning." "Oh, Julius." "Well, I don't want to hustle you any, Jane, but there's no sense in waiting about. Don't be scared. I shan't expect you to love me all at once." But a small hand was slipped into his. "I love you now, Julius," said Jane Finn. "I loved you that first moment in the car when the bullet grazed your cheek." 5 minutes later, Jane murmured softly. "I don't know London very well, Julius, but it is such a very long way from the Savoy." No, she's asking, but is it such a very long way from the Savoy to the Ritz? "It depends how you go," explained Julius unblushingly. "We're going by way of Regent's Park." "Oh, Julius, what will the chauffeur think? At the wages I pay him, he knows better than to do any independent thinking." "Why, Jane, the only reason I had the supper at the Savoy was so I could drive you home. I didn't see how I was ever going to get hold of you alone. You and Tuppence have been sticking together like Siamese twins. I guess another day of it would have driven me and Beresford stark staring mad." "Oh, is he?" "Of course he is, head over heels." "I thought so," said Jane thoughtfully. "Why?" "From all the things Tuppence didn't say." "There you have me beat," said Mr. Hersheimer, but Jane only laughed. In the meantime, the young adventurers were sitting bolt upright, very stiff and ill at ease, in a taxi which, with a singular lack of originality, was also returning to the Ritz via Regent's Park. A terrible constraint seemed to have settled down between them. Without quite knowing what had happened, everything seemed changed. They were tongue-tied, paralyzed. All the old camaraderie was gone. Tuppence could think of nothing to say. Tommy was equally afflicted. They sat very straight and forebode to look at each other. At last Tuppence made a desperate effort. "Rather fun, wasn't it?" "Rather." Another silence. "I like Julius," essayed Tuppence again. Tommy was suddenly galvanized into life. "You're not going to marry him, do you hear?" he said dictatorially. "I forbid it." "Oh?" said Tuppence meekly. "Absolutely, you understand? He doesn't want to marry me. He really only asked me out of kindness." "That's not very likely," scoffed Tommy. "It's quite true. He's head over heels in love with Jane. I expect he's proposing to her now." "She'll do for him very nicely," said Tommy condescendingly. "Don't you think she's the most lovely creature you've ever seen?" "Oh, I dare say." But I suppose you prefer Sterlingworth, said Tuppence demurely. Oh, dash it all, Tuppence, you know. I like your uncle, Tommy, said Tuppence, hastily creating a diversion. By the way, what are you going to do? Accept Mr. Carter's offer of a government job? Or accept Julius's invitation and take a richly remunerated post in America on his ranch? Hang on. I should know what some of these words mean. I feel so dumb when I come upon one I don't know. Remunerated. Wish it would have the darn pronunciation. Remunerate. And he said remunerated. Pay someone for services rendered or work done. Okay. I shall stick to the old ship, I think, though it's awfully good of Hersheimer, but I feel you'd be more at home in London. I don't see where I come in. I do, said Tommy positively. Tuppence stole a glance at him sideways. There's the money, too, she observed thoughtfully. What money? We're going to get a check each. Mr. Carter told me so. Did you ask how much? Inquired Tommy. Oh, he inquired it sarcastically. Yes, said Tuppence triumphantly, but I shan't tell you. Tuppence, you are the limit. It has been fun, hasn't it, Tommy? I do hope we shall have lots more adventures. You're insatiable, Tuppence. I've had quite enough adventures for the present. Well, shopping is almost as good, said Tuppence dreamily. Think of buying old furniture and bright carpets and futurist silk curtains and a polished dining table and a divan with lots of cushions. Hold hard, said Tommy. What's all this for? Possibly a house, but I think a flat. Whose flat? You think I mind saying it, but I don't in the least. Ours. So there. You darling, cried Tommy, his arms tightly round her. I was determined to make you say it. I owe you something for the relentless way you squashed me whenever I've tried to be sentimental. Tuppence raised her face to his. The taxi proceeded on its course round the north side of Regent's Park. You haven't really proposed now, pointed out Tuppence. Not what our grandmothers would call a proposal, but after listening to a rotten one like Julius's, I'm inclined to let you off. You won't be able to get out of marrying me, so don't think it. What fun it will be, responded Tuppence. Marriage is called all sorts of things, a haven and a refuge and a crowning glory and a state of bondage, and lots more. But do you know what I think it is? What? A sport. And a damn good sport, too, said Tommy. And that's the end. And here's a little bit about the author. Let's read this. Agatha Christie is the most widely published author of all time and in any language outsold only by the Bible and Shakespeare. And thank you, Pat Dancer, for suggesting we read Agatha Christie. Let's all give Pat Dancer a round of applause. Love you. Let's see, her books have sold more than 1 billion copies in English and another 1 billion in 100 foreign languages. She is the author of 80 crime novels and short story collections, 19 plays, 2 memoirs, and 6 novels written under the name Mary Westmacott. Didn't know that. She first tried her hand at detective fiction while working in a hospital dispensary during WW1, creating the now legendary, how do we say his name? Hercule Poirot. I didn't say it right, but anyway, y'all know who I mean. With her debut novel, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, with The Murder in the Vicarage, published in 1930. We read that one. She introduced another beloved sleuth, Miss Jane Marple. Additional series characters include the husband and wife crime-fighting team of Tommy and Tuppence Beresford, private investigator Parker Pine, and Scotland Yard Detective Superintendent Battle and Inspector Japp, Japp. Many of Christie's novels and short stories were adapted into plays, films, and television series. The Mousetrap, her most famous play of all, opened in 1952 and is the longest-running play in history. Throat's so sore. I got Zyrtec today, though. We're going to see how that works. Among her best-known film adaptations are Murder on the Orient Express in 1974, Death on the Nile in 1978, and with Albert Finney and Peter Ustinov playing whatever that name is, Hercule. It looks like Hercule Poirot, respectively. On the small screen, Poirot has been most memorably portrayed by David Suchet, and Miss Marple by Joan Hickson, and subsequently Geraldine McEwen and Julia Mackenzie. But the Miss Marple I love, now I'm going to forget her name, Margaret Rutherford, maybe? She's great. She's in a couple movies, Murder Most Foul, and something on the sea, Murder Ahoy or something like that. I just love her. Christie was first married to Archibald Christie and then to archaeologist Sir Max Mallowan, Mallowan, whom she accompanied on expeditions to countries that would serve as the settings for many of her novels. In 1971, she achieved one of Britain's highest honors when she was made a Dame of the British Empire. She died in 1976 at the age of 85. Her 120th anniversary was celebrated around the world in 2010. And that's it, and that's all. So, if you're still up on this Thursday night, 4/21 of 22, my good buddy Natalie of Natalie's Closet is live right now, and I'm going to go join her. Y'all be sweet, don't be ugly. I love y'all. And we'll get to this tomorrow. Love y'all. Just say be sweet, don't be ugly. I think I did. Bye.